Happy Juneteenth! Democrats on Capitol Hill are celebrating the end of slavery by pushing for reparations for the great-great-great-great-grandchildren of black slaves. We will examine why that's a terrible idea. Then President Trump kicks off his bid to make America great again. And someone planted kiddie porn on Alex Jones's InfoWars servers. All of that and more. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. So much to get to today. But first, let me tell you about Big Token. Let me help you make a little bit of money. Big Token is a new app that lets you share data about yourself, your interests, and your habits, and then you get paid for it. This is the part, you're already sharing all of this data. You share an enormous amount of information with tech companies already, and they get it for free. They make a lot of money on it. You should also make some money on it. That's where Big Token comes in. Here's how it works. First, you download the app and you sign up for a free Big Token account. Then you complete actions to earn points, and that can be anything from answering surveys, checking into locations, just saying, hey, look, I'm here right now, check, to connecting your social networks and more. Then you redeem your points for rewards like cash and gift cards, or if you were a good person, you could donate your earnings to charity, but you'll probably go for the cash and the gift cards. You choose which data you want to share with Big Token, then you get paid for it. And those are the two keys here. You choose which data are going to Big Token. It's not like they're just going to take your data. You get to pick, then you get paid. Both very important. Plus, you get more points for referring friends and family. Your data is always secure on Big Token. It is all what you choose to share, and then based on that, you'll be placed into specific ad groups, and brands will buy access to those, and everybody makes money. Most importantly, you get paid. If you want to start earning money from your data, go to the App Store or Google Play, search for Big Token, BIGTOKEN. That's one word, download the app, and sign up. But most importantly, make sure to use my referral code, Knowles, Knowles, so that when everyone makes money and you make money, I get to make money too and keep my show on the air. So search Big Token in the App Store, go to Google Play, wherever you get your apps, download the app, use my referral code, Knowles, Knowles, to sign up, claim your data, and get paid. Before we get to reparations, this is kind of the big story right now. It's happening on Capitol Hill as we speak. Before we get to that, I just have to tell you something. It was an epiphany I had. I woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat because I think I have solved once and for all the immigration debate in the United States. So you remember yesterday, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that the Trump administration's immigration policies are like the Holocaust. Here's what she said.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border. And that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps. And if that doesn't bother you, we can have, okay, whatever. I want to talk to the people that are concerned enough with humanity to say that we should not, that never again means something.
So you heard that. She said it's like concentration camps. She said it's just like never again, which is a direct reference to the Holocaust. So the Trump administration's immigration policies are like the Holocaust. But then the other fresh face of the Democrat Party, Rashida Tlaib, said that the Holocaust gives her a calming feeling.
Just a few, I think 2 weeks ago or so, we celebrated, it took a moment, I think, in our country to remember the Holocaust. And there's a kind of a calming feeling I always tell folks when I think of the Holocaust and the tragedy of the Holocaust.
So if the Trump administration having immigration laws is just like the Holocaust, and the Holocaust gives Democrats a calming feeling, the Trump administration's immigration policies give Democrats a calming feeling. We've come to a national consensus. We don't need to talk about it anymore. That's it. We're doing good on the immigration plans. President Trump, keep going full steam ahead. You have the support of the fresh faces in the future of the Democrat Party. I woke up as if with a start. I said, there it is. One of the central issues in our country. There are some other issues going on in our country. Now that we've solved immigration, we also have to move on to the most important issue of the day. Forget the economy, forget peace abroad, forget immigration, forget our national borders. No, the most important issue of the day is reparations for the great-great-great-grandchildren of slaves 150 years after slavery was abolished in the United States. They're holding hearings on this right now on Capitol Hill. Why are they doing it today? Today is Juneteenth. And I think some people don't know what Juneteenth is. I think maybe this is like a geographic issue. Some people have never heard of it. Juneteenth is a very important day in the ending of slavery. It's not the day when slavery was abolished by the Emancipation Proclamation. That was issued on September 22nd, 1862 by President Lincoln, and it went into effect January 1st, 1863. It's not the day that we exactly freed all of the slaves. It's not the day that we freed all the slaves in the rebelling states. It's the day that slavery was abolished in Texas. So Texas was not a battleground of the Civil War, and so the Emancipation Proclamation didn't have any effect there. And then on June 18th, the Union Army General Gordon Granger arrived at Galveston Island with 2,000 federal troops, and he said, the federal law is the law here now in Texas, and he announced the next day freedom for the slaves. That's Juneteenth, and this Juneteenth, so many years later, a lot of Democrats are calling for reparations for the descendants of black slaves in the United States. Here's Sheila Jackson Lee. We don't have the clip of Sheila Jackson Lee. We'll try to get that clip afterward. Sheila Jackson Lee, one of the dumbest members of the U.S. Congress, which is really saying something. In the U.S. Congress, the average IQ is about 50, and she is a particularly egregious member of Congress. She has come out and said, we need reparations for slavery because the United States has never apologized for slavery. Of course the United States has apologized for slavery. We fought a bloody war where between 600 and 750,000 Americans killed themselves to answer for the question of slavery. We then had a civil rights movement, and then we had a great society. We had, we had all of these federal welfare programs that we were trying to effect to bring about some equality and apologize for historical slavery. So obviously this is ridiculous. Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is that left-wing writer, and he won the MacArthur Genius Grant. He's like the favorite writer of the race-baiting left. Ta-Nehisi Coates makes the better case for this. Ta-Nehisi Coates, the case is basically this, that regardless of who's responsible for slavery, it doesn't matter, black people do worse in America than other groups. They do worse than not all other groups. There are some groups that do worse specifically, Native Americans, for instance. But on the whole, black people in America have less money, have higher rates of crime, lower educational attainment outcomes. They marry at lower rates. They have higher out-of-wedlock birth. They have higher rates of abortion. In New York City, 60% of black babies are aborted. More black babies are aborted than born. It's the most dangerous place for a black person in New York, is in his mother's womb. That's terrifying. I mean, that's bad. And so what Ta-Nehisi Coates is saying is, regardless of who's responsible for it, this is the fact. You can't deny that right now black people are doing worse in America than other groups are. That's true. What he is saying is that history is affecting black people today. And I actually agree with him. I think this is a pretty good case. I mean, just speaking personally, when I think of the country, my ancestors helped to found America. 4 of them came over here on the Mayflower. They fought in, I think, every American war. John and Simon Knowles fought at Bunker Hill. John died of his wounds there. Simon Knowles was in Washington's army, was with him at Valley Forge. George Cobb Knowles died at the battle, I think, of Boynton Plank Road in the Civil War. When I look back on the history of America, I see my family's involvement in it. And that gives me a loyalty to the country, a love of the country, a sense of responsibility toward the country. If my ancestors were dragged here on slave ships, I would have a very different view of the United States. It's not anybody's fault. That's just natural. Of course you would. If your ancestors are brought here in chains and suffered systematic oppression and enslavement for 100 years or 150 years, you're going to have a dismal or dim view of the history of the country. Now, maybe that's changed by the fact that America fought a bloody civil war to free the slaves, and that America has tried to live up to its own creed over many years, sure, maybe that changes your view of it. But I totally get the Ta-Nehisi Coates argument. However, Coates' solution doesn't make any sense. The solution of reparations for the descendants of slaves is totally idiotic, because I guess fundamentally why it's wrong is because it's a Marxist view. So it offers a materialist view of the world. It offers this view of the world that money solves all problems. That basically what Ta-Nehisi Coates is saying, what all of these guys pushing for reparations for slavery are saying, is that all problems stem from the distribution of money, and all problems can be solved with the redistribution of money. That's obviously not true. And actually, the Great Society showed us this. I mean, the Great Society programs of LBJ, the massive welfare spending of the 1960s and 70s showed us we threw money at the problem, and the problem didn't get solved. The problem didn't get any better. Actually, the problem just got worse. It actually ended up hurting the people it was intended to help. An example of this outside of reparations for slavery or anything like that is in education spending. For 40 years, we increased education spending, inflation adjusted, by 375%. Guess what happened to test scores? Nothing. They didn't improve at all. We threw money at the problem. We threw more and more money at the problem. Didn't do anything. Because the problem of educational attainment didn't stem from money. And the redistribution of money was not going to solve it. Same thing, we increased welfare spending to right historical racial wrongs, to defeat poverty. They say we fought a war on poverty and poverty won. We actually learned from the Moynihan report that came out after the Great Society that we ended up hurting the people that we intended to help. Crime rates increased, out-of-wedlock birth rates increased, abortion rates increased, because there were perverse government incentives for the breakdown of the black family. Nevertheless, reparations remain very popular among 2020 Democrats. So right now, currently supporting reparations, you have Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Julian Castro, Liz Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, Beto O'Rourke, so many. I mean, I think there are probably 800 other Democrats that we can't even name. All of those guys are supporting reparations. This is radical. I mean, this is not a normal policy position to hold. Notably, Barack Obama, who's a very left-wing politician, didn't hold this policy view. And Barack Obama, obviously the first black president. Barack Obama said, quote, "I fear reparations would be used as an excuse for some to say that we've paid our debt and to avoid the much harder work." So what he's saying is actually reparations wouldn't go far enough. It would give America the opportunity to just cut a check and say, okay, the problems associated with slavery and Jim Crow and lynchings and all of that, they've just been totally rectified now. We don't have to think about it anymore. Actually, I sort of agree with Barack Obama on this. It's ridiculous. Of course, that doesn't change history. It doesn't change the past. And it doesn't change the way that the past affects the present. So I hate to say it, but I agree with Barack Obama on reparations. I also agree with Mitch McConnell, who makes the point that reparations today, money from white people today to black people today, or whoever else they're going to try to organize it, is just incoherent.
Yeah, I don't think reparations for something that happened 150 years ago, for whom none of us currently living are responsible, is a good idea. We've, tried to deal with our original sin of slavery by fighting a civil war, by passing landmark civil rights legislation. We've elected an African-American president. First of all, it'd be pretty hard to figure out who to compensate. We've had waves of immigrants as well who've come to the country and experienced dramatic discrimination of one kind or another. So no, I don't think reparations are a good idea.
Totally makes sense. I mean, he actually makes the broader point, which is that, yes, black slavery was a particularly egregious form of oppression, but other groups have faced systematic oppression. When we talk about, obviously the question of lynching and vigilante justice has been brought up in this conversation about reparations. The largest mass lynching in American history was against Sicilian people in 1891. Does that mean that we're going to have some special federal program for the descendants of Sicilian people? I ask in a leading way. Wouldn't mind a little extra money. No, of course not. How about Jews? How about Any other group, the Irish, Hispanics, any other group that's come to America has also faced oppression. Obviously not at the level of a century or more of chattel slavery. But who are you to say that their oppression doesn't demand a little payback from the federal government? Reparations don't make any sense for all of those reasons, and most especially because money doesn't just necessarily solve problems, because we're not fundamentally just material beings. We're not, Winston Churchill said that when great forces are on the move in the world, we learn that we're spirits, not animals. The destiny of man is not measured by material computations. Materialism, Marxism, is wrong. That's not how the world is. It doesn't take into account suffering. It doesn't take into account what history means for the present. It doesn't take into account the actual motivations of people, which are not primarily about money, which are not primarily material. But beyond all of that, reparations will not achieve what people want them to achieve. It is just in practice totally impracticable. It's unclear who should pay whom. It's unclear where the money comes from, where the money is supposed to go. So everybody acknowledges that slavery is a particular moral evil, and most of the founders understood this as well, though they don't get any credit for it. But the case for reparations rests on a basic ignorance about the fundamental facts of slavery. To put this into context, I think a lot of people think that the United States was the chief importer of slaves from West Africa. Not true. The United States imported at most 4 to 6% of the African slaves who came to the New World. The majority of those slaves went to Brazil and South America and Central America. This is obviously not singularly an issue about the United States. It affected the entire world. It's not even just about the West. It's not even just about the Western Hemisphere. It affected the entire world. It still affects the entire world. There is slavery today throughout Asia, throughout the Middle East. It currently exists. We just ended it in the mid to late 19th century. Also, and this is the part that people's heads explode, slavery is not simply a racial issue. It's not simply white people had black slaves. Ironically, this is one of these quirks of history that shows you God must exist because it's so whimsical and it's so ironic and you think there's no way this could possibly be true. The first formally recognized slaveholder in America was black. We'll explain who it was and what it was, but first, you and I, we're never going to agree about everything, are we? There's one thing that we can all agree on, that we could all use more sleep. I only got about 17 hours of sleep last night. That's why I look so drowsy and tired. But I got 17 hours of great sleep because, no, I did. Maybe not 17 hours, but I did get a great night's sleep last night because of Boll and Branch. It's so much more affordable than you think. If you want to get a great sleep and you want to do it the simplest way possible, change your sheets. And don't change them with those cheapo sandpaper sheets that you buy down the street. Go check out Boll and Branch. Everything Boll and Branch makes, from bedding to blankets, is made from pure 100% organic cotton, which means they start out super soft, they get softer over time. You can buy them directly from them, so you're paying wholesale prices. I saw this when I was getting married, and I had a registry, Luxury sheets can cost $1,000. I mean, they're so expensive. And I don't know if you've ever felt luxury sheets. I've gotten to stay at some nice hotels sometimes. Luxury sheets are unbelievable. They make all the difference in the world. And I just thought, there's no way I can ever afford these. Boll and Branch sheets are only a couple $100. They cut out the middleman, go straight to you. Shipping is free. You can try them for 30 nights. If you don't love them, you can send them back for a refund. But you're going to love them. You're not going to send them back, not a chance. So there is no risk, no reason not to give them a try. To get started right now, my listeners, get $50 off your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com, promo code Michael, Michael. Go to bollandbranch.com today for $50 off your first set of sheets. bollandbranch.com, promo code Michael. Do it right now, bollandbranch.com, promo code Michael. You're going to love it. This is one of the great historical ironies that nobody really acknowledges. The first formally recognized slaveholder in the United States was not some white Southern bumpkin. It was a black guy. The first formally recognized slave owner was a guy named Anthony Johnson. He was a black Angolan farmer. He was captured in Angola by Arab slave traders. The Arab slave traders sold him off. He ended up in Virginia. and he was a slave in Virginia. He was eventually emancipated after his indenture was over. He was freed, and he himself became a successful farmer. He also owned slaves. So he owned a black slave named John Casor, and John Casor felt that at a certain point he should have been freed. He had committed his indenture, his servitude. You know, the idea of indentured servitude was you would be a slave, basically, for a certain period of time, then you would be emancipated. And John Casor felt that he had served his sentence and should have been emancipated. And Anthony Johnson, the black Angolan farmer, said, no, you're my slave for life. They took it to court, and a Virginia court ruled that Johnson owned John Casor for life. So the question is, are the black descendants of Anthony Johnson, a slave owner, entitled to reparations for slavery? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Are the black descendants of John Casor, the slave owned by Anthony Johnson, entitled to reparations from the black descendants of Anthony Johnson? So that means that when we have reparations for slavery, some black descendants of slave owners have to pay the reparations to some black descendants of slaves? Is that, how are we going to work that? Are we going to be taking DNA tests, and Ancestry.com is going to get hundreds of millions of dollars in federal grants just to figure out who was descended from whom? What if you're descended from a black slave owner and a black slave? Which, does it cancel out? Or a white slave owner and a black slave? Well, how are we going to adjudicate your culpability today in 2019 for the sins of your great-great-great-great-grandfathers? Or which great-great-great-great-great-grandfather? Also, this complicates it even more for the woke social justice crowd. It wasn't only white people and black people who owned slaves. Native Americans also held slaves, and Native Americans owned a lot of slaves. There were some black slave owners. There were a lot of white slave owners. There were a lot of white Native American slave owners. Of the five, they were called the five civilized tribes, the five major tribes. We're talking about the Cherokee, the Choctaw. Those five tribes adopted chattel slavery, like the really awful, terrible, worst form of slavery you can imagine. They adopted it. In 1809, the Cherokee had 600 black slaves. By 1838, so the time of the Trail of Tears, the Cherokee marched thousands of slaves down the Trail of Tears ahead of them, or sent them by ship to the new territory. By 1860, on the eve of the Civil War, the Cherokee had 21,000 black slaves. Those five major tribes owned slaves, black African slaves, at the same rate as Southern whites. Now this gets even more complicated, because it's not just that the five civilized tribes held black slaves at the same rate as Southern whites, and then slavery was over, and then that was it. Because when the federal government freed the slaves, the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment and Juneteenth and all that, when they freed the slaves, that didn't free the slaves in the Indian territories, because the Indian territories were sovereign. They had their own territory, they had their own system of government, they had their own laws, and they weren't bound by the laws of the United States. So actually, the Indians kept black slaves longer than the United States did. Now, eventually, the federal government intervened here. So the five civilized tribes did not free the slaves on their own. The federal government came in and forced them basically to sign a treaty in 1866, and one provision of that treaty was that they free the slaves. And this was a sticking point in the negotiations, but eventually all of the tribes agreed to it. And so in 1866, a year after the Civil War ended, the Indians finally agreed to free their slaves and abolish slavery. So are the great-great-great-great-grandchildren of black slaves today entitled to reparations from Native American tribes? Not just the descendants of Native Americans, but the actual sovereign tribes as they exist today. Are they entitled to that? Are we going to, is this federal commission that the Democrats want to set up going to send a bill to the Native American tribes for slavery, for holding slaves longer than even the Americans did? Probably not. That doesn't really work well with the intersectional victim pyramid, does it? What is the conclusion from all of this? It's an obvious one. You can't fix the past. Can't do it. It's not, that's why it's the past. That's the definition of the past. You've only got the present. And you specifically can't correct a past injustice with a present injustice, taking somebody's property because of the sins of their great-great-great-great-grandfathers. Or the sins of one of their great-great-great-great-grandfathers, but not their other great-great-great-great-grandfather, and you've got to basically come to some sort of biologically determined adversity suffering victimhood score, and then what do you find out you're 72% victim, so you only have to pay 28% of the reparations tax on the, what is it? How on earth is this going to be put into practice? It's a total injustice. Why are Democrats focusing on this? This is absurd. Even Barack Obama thinks it's absurd. Very left-wing guy, first black president. The reason they're focusing on this is because the left has no present problems to focus on. Things are too freaking good, so they have to relitigate slavery 150 years later. Why? They can't run on the economy. The economy's going great. Can't run on jobs. We have record low joblessness. They can't run on war or peace. We've got relative peace abroad, pretty good foreign policy. They can't run. What are they going to run on? They got nothing. So they're trying to relitigate slavery, and it's ridiculous, and it leads to these sort of absurdities like you're seeing on Capitol Hill today. Conservatives don't need to run on those things because our policies are working incredibly well, and they're very popular in the here and now. And that is why President Trump officially has kicked off his campaign to make America great again last night.
We're going to keep making America great again, and then we will indeed keep America great. We will keep it so great. Better than ever before. We're going to keep it better than ever before. And that is why tonight I stand before you to officially launch my campaign for a second term as President of the United States.
Okay, so we all knew this was happening. It's no big surprise that he's announcing his campaign. The campaign never really ended. He's done rallies throughout his presidency. This is true of other presidents too. I mean, so it doesn't seem like a huge moment, except there was a massive crowd there in Orlando, Florida. Everyone was super excited. It was visually a very good start to the campaign, and it had one of the most beautiful moments of recent political memory. You're watching this on CNN. CNN has to cover it. This is the news. And within 6 minutes of the rally starting, you hear a chant begin spontaneously from the crowd that says, CNN sucks. CNN sucks. You can hear it here. And then what do you think CNN does? They got to cut away.
This was our chance to reclaim our government.
All right, we've been watching the president kick off his re-election bid. He's been on stage for about 6 minutes.
Oh, yeah, is that right, CNN? So hold on, wait, you're telling me you interrupted all of your programming so that you could cover 6 minutes of the rally? I don't know about that. Usually you'd have to cover, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of the rally, but they start almost from the beginning. They start, CNN sucks. Trump turns around, he's got a grin on his face from ear to ear, and then within a minute of that happening, CNN cuts away. Okay, well, yeah, you've heard that. All right, that's enough. Enough of that now. Go away. Show me the lie. This is obviously what the crowd said is just objectively true, and it reminds you why people are really fired up. We're fired up about all of these issues. We're fired up about immigration. We're fired up about the economy. We're fired up about America, keep loving America, loving the country, keeping the nation, keeping our sovereignty, making America great again. We love all of those things. And we really, really hate being lied to. It drives us crazy when these guys unzip their flies on CNN and then they tell us it's raining. We hate that. And when they tell us not to believe our lying eyes, we hate that. We don't like them. They're dishonest. They're just dishonest people, and they don't like this country very much. And they make that clear day after day. And we're sick of it. So it was a great moment. Then President Trump gets to all the classic points of what this campaign is going to be about.
With your help, with your love and your devotion, and with your drive, we are going to keep on working. We are going to keep on fighting. And we are going to keep on winning, winning, winning. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And together, we will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you, Orlando. Thank you, Florida.
That's great. Obviously, all the classic points are very popular, and it's exactly the opposite of what the Democrats want to do. Joe Biden says the first thing he's going to do is take away the tax cuts. So Trump wants to make America wealthy, strong, safe, great. What do Democrats want to do? They want to make it less wealthy. They want to take wealth away from you. They want America to be less strong, not to project strength overseas, to reduce our military spending. They don't care for America to be safe. They want totally open borders, and they don't want to deport any criminals, and they want sanctuary cities for criminals who spit in the face of our laws. And they don't want America to be great. They don't think America was ever great to begin with. Andrew Cuomo, sitting governor of New York, he said during a speech, he said, America was never that great to begin with. That's what they believe. Trump is doing exactly the opposite, which is great. And he's also doing something that Republicans haven't really done before. He goes at the Democrats' throat. He goes at the left's throat. We'll see how in a second. But first, I've got great news for you. We are taking our backstage show live on the road, August 21st, to the Terrace Theater in Long Beach, California. It's going to be super fun. Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire God King Jeremy Boring, the Lord of the Multiverse, Andrew Klavan, and best of all, little old me, yours truly. We'll be live on stage discussing the winners and losers of politics and pop culture and doing our best to answer your burning questions from the audience. Tickets go on sale to the public this Friday, but only Daily Wire subscribers get pre-sale ticket access today through Thursday. You can do it. Time is running out, though. Do it right now. Subscribe. Get your tickets today. Come join us for a fabulous and fantastic event. Much, much more to get to. We got to get to how left-wing wackos presumably planted kiddie porn on Alex Jones's server, what it means for our country, what it means for conservatism. But first, go to dailywire.com. We'll be right back with a lot more.